is Fuck You Dad.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Fuck You Dad. This is one of those special episodes that I think in the future, I'm excited for this day, by the way. In the future, I think Kenyon's going to do something to somebody, and we're going to have to delete all the episodes that he's associated with. So this is one of the ones that will stand the test of time, fortunately, because it's just me this week because Kenyon's out of town doing comedy in Atlanta and North Carolina and enjoying himself. But this week, we got a very special comedian. Started in North Carolina, moved to New York, now back in North Carolina. The very funny Paul Hooper. Paul, what's up, man?
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I want to talk about your album Tense and Uncomfortable. We were just about to start the story because
You remembered.
I did remember when it mattered too.
Yes, that's right. Recording. This is the moment. You got it.
Why did you name it Tense and Uncomfortable?
I couldn't think of a title, and then I signed it. I'm with Stand Up Records, and so Dan at Stand Up Records during this whole album thing was trying to set me up with a photographer. This guy Dan Dion, who's this great photographer, and so he's trying to set it up like, oh, we'll get the cover for the album. He's coming to New York. You get photos for the album, and then so he copied me on all these emails to connect us. And on one of them, I saw Dan's like, hey. Dan Schlissel to Dan Dion was like, hey, when you meet Paul, just know that he's tense and uncomfortable. So I'm like, Dan, I saw that. He's like, well, you are. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think you should introduce me to people like that. You don't want to meet that guy.
And what a way to make me more tense and uncomfortable than knowing that he knows that I know that he knows.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm super uptight about it. Yeah, and it's like, oh, man. I'm like, you're right. And he was not apologetic at all. And so when
I think I like the title. Now that you know that, when you get the story, it's a good title.
It's a good one. And I couldn't think of a better name. And I'm like, all right, sort of an inside joke and like, put it Tense and Uncomfortable, but it's a clunky name, but I still like it. I like it.
It's funny when people call comedians artists, but when it comes to like all the art stuff of like the album cover and what it's going to be called, a lot of us are like, fuck, like that's harder than writing the jokes for 15 years or whatever.
Yeah, drawing a blank and just like any of that stuff. So mine's like a very basic photo of my head. My sleepy looking head and just like tense and uncomfortable. There's nothing special about the cover art. It's a good photo.
Yeah.
But,
you don't want anything too flat. You know what I mean? You want to let the jokes come through. You don't want to look like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Band,
No, I don't need nothing too fancy. Just very stripped down, whatever. Tense and uncomfortable.
So we both started in did you start in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yeah, started. Yeah.
And what was your like first open mic? Was that at
Oh, this is sad to admit, but I think I might have been in one of the first comedy classes or workshops in like 98, which is crazy.
Okay.
So I didn't go to an open mic. I thought about it for a couple years.
Oh, you went to the comedy class.
Yeah, it sucked. And
those are, I mean, it's good though. I mean, you get a lot out of it.
Well, mine wasn't, they didn't help me write anything. I wrote and I refused to let them. It's not like I knew anything about comedy. I just like, these are my stubborn ideas, and I've always been that way.
I like that you were already there. You're already a grizzled vet.
Already. Like, no, I don't want anyone writing me stuff. So they're like ideas, and I wouldn't listen, and sometimes they might have been right, but they did help me. Like, you would get up in front of the class before you got up in front of the real crowd.
Yeah.
So that the only thing it helped me with was to ease me in, because the idea of me walking off the street and going in front of 200 people or whatever it was, it was too much. It was it was terrifying. So by doing that little 3 or 4 week thing, I got in front of the 20 people that wanted to do it, and I had an okay set. And then a couple weeks later, you did it in front of my first time was like in front of 200 or 300 people.
Wow.
And so, you're supposed to do 5 minutes. I think I did 2.5, but I got laughs the first minute or two. And then I wrote a joke that day and used it as my closer. And they were like, don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it'll work. Yeah. I wasn't cocky, but I'm like, I like it, I'm going to do it.
And after 2 minutes of kind of getting laughs, you're like, oh, it'll work.
Dude, riding a high. I'm like, I didn't give a shit. And then so I did it, and that bombed. But the first 2 minutes were so fun that I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was terrified. So I got through it, and that was that, man. Yeah.
So when I first started, I also took a comedy class taught by Eric Trundy, who you know.
He's so good. He's so great. I love him.
So good. Hilarious. Just if you want to picture like a guy from Boston who is a comedian, but he's like he was like my father figure, I would say. besides my dad, I guess. But he was a really funny person to have teach that class because he was brutal as a teacher.
Yeah.
Especially for comedy, because we had him and Steve Lesser, who's like the nicest guy in the world. He owns the Idiot Box with Jenny. So Steve would be like, "Great job. I really liked that second joke." And Eric would be like, "Don't know what the fuck you were doing for most of it." Like you had a minute, you had a moment in the middle there, but throw it away. Try again next week. And it was so funny. I actually think that I felt more nervous doing the comedy class in front of there was 6 people in the class and then Trundy. Then doing their open mics would get packed with 40 people.
Yeah.
There I felt fine because I was like, oh, Trundy isn't going to
berate you, right?
me after this. Yeah.
He's so good. Like a couple years ago, I got some of these last-minute one-nighters to Georgia and Florida, and I asked him to open, but he hadn't been doing that much stand-up. So he's like, I don't know. I haven't done that much. But he agreed to do it, and then he just went up and did whatever, just riffed and crushed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to follow this guy who hasn't done it in months, who's just killing. In hard rooms, too, man. He's really
He's
great.
a magician. I know he would hate that I just called him that, which is...
I'm sure he would. But I love him. I love his surly ass. He's the best. The best.
So did you grow up in Charlotte?
I grew up, born and raised in Charlotte, yeah.
Okay.
Started comedy in Charlotte. I was there, 35 years of my life before I moved to New York, yeah.
And did you go to college at all in Charlotte?
No,
or?
I dropped out of high school twice.
Whoa.
Yeah, dropped out in 10th grade twice and then finished. The compromise was my mom was raising me, and so she was like, I want to get a GED. She's like, you're not getting a GED. You got to finish high school. But I didn't want to go back to the actual high school, so she found a community college with adult high school completion. So I did that.
Nothing's getting done there, though.
I got through it somehow.
You did? I mean,
Yeah.
I went to community college as well, and that was it was funny when I first moved to North Carolina. I was worried because I'm such a stoner. I was worried. I was like, I'm living with my parents. I know nobody. How am I going to get any weed? First day in community college, first class. First kid sitting next to me was like, "Hey, you want to buy some weed?" And I was like, "Oh, this is the place to go to school."
That's the spot, man.
Yeah.
Community college. Yeah. That's where I finished my high school. So I technically have a high school diploma.
Okay.
But it's from a community college.
Huh.
Which people are like, that's a GED. I'm like, no, I swear it's not, man. I was there for 2 years. I did it.
So were you like a scrappy kid? Were you getting in trouble, or were you just bored and didn't want to?
No,
go to school?
I don't know. I'm telling you, I hit puberty, so I had good grades, and I know everything's a little bit easier when you're a kid. At least it was for me. Grades and school, and I was a little more social. And then I hit puberty, and my attitude went to shit. And I don't know if I've yet to recover. Like honestly. Like at 13, I know puberty's hard on it, but I mean a dramatic change of like, I don't want to. The idea of being in a building with a bunch of kids, it gave me panic attack. I'm just like, I want to be locked in my room, which is very common for teenagers, but I was to an extreme of it was the anxiety. I didn't want to do the work either, but it was the building for 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
Still to this day, anytime I have to be somewhere, maybe it's why I never had a regular job, being somewhere 6 to 8 hours makes me crazy. The idea of it is like a jail cell. And I felt that from 13 or 14 on. And so I was just trying to stay out of school, making up excuses.
Okay.
And started flunking out and then dropped out. And my mom was, she was raising me by herself.
Okay.
And I apologize to her to this day because, she's trying to work and raise this kid and I'm out of control. And so we got through it, but I don't know. During that time, it was just up to 13. Everything was fine. Not everything was perfect, but I felt great. And then at 13,
you were just like, I know 2 things. I want to have sex with a woman, and I also don't want to do anything at all. Those were like
mine wasn't even. I was terrified of girls too.
Oh, it wasn't even sexual.
Yeah, just anything.
It was just pure.
I didn't want to be around males or females. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't resurface until I was 18 or 19. Before I'm like, I can participate in society again.
See, I didn't hit puberty until I was like 16 and a half. So, I mean, I was just, I was full of anxiety because I wasn't hitting puberty.
Really?
I was like, I heard there was hormones in milk, so I was just pounding milk. I would drink like 4 glasses of milk a day. I was like, I want to fucking grow a pube,
Were your parents taking you to the doctor or anything? Or is it just sort of like, we'll see what happens?
I didn't really mention it to them. We, as a family, we're not very open about any sort of issue,
You got a solid beard now. It came along.
It did, yeah. Something, I mean, it all happened. And if you told 18-year-old Nick that I would have like a C- beard when I'm 27, I'd be stoked.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
You did it. You
I'd
were
be
late,
really
but
pumped.
That's
That
all right.
that and doing comedy, I'd be like, man, I got to be rich, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, not
You've
that part.
achieved all the dreams. You've arrived. You've done it, dude. Yeah.
So, but you didn't get any like police trouble, right?
No, not until I started drinking in my 20s. And then I got in police trouble.
Okay.
So it was like when I really came out of my shell and started going like on it.
Alcohol helps with that.
Yeah.
Alcohol's like fuck the shell.
And it's always like more extreme. I feel like everybody, like the teenage thing, the way I was, teenagers are like that. And then 20s, I just took it to more of an extreme.
Okay.
With my
So-
antisocial behavior as a teenager and my drinking as a 20-something-year-old. It's just off the deep end. Always off the fucking deep end. And so I started drinking late. I didn't have my first drink till I was 19.
Okay.
And didn't go crazy. And then at 21, you could buy it, so it took a little bit further. At 22, I started comedy. And in 98, it was a little bit different. There was still, like, I think a lot of carryover from the 80s or early 90s where people, like, comics were partying, the staff was partying hard. I know it still happens today, but it was still, like, hard. Like,
I have yet to really see it, though. From the way people were talking about the way comedy was in, like, the 80s and the partying and the cocaine and the sex. Now it's a lot of nerds.
I missed all the 80s, so I caught this late 90s
That
thing,
late
which was
night-
still,
yeah.
but the headliners were still,
Nirvana of comedy.
yes, that's right, the Generation X, is that what I am? Yeah. And it was like, the staff, I remember the place I started, the Comedy on the Show, which was fun, the general manager to the bartenders to the waitresses to every comic that came through were hammered, out of control, Wednesday through Sunday. There was no sober person in the building.
Yeah.
The general manager of the place wasn't sober, and it was just like a blast. So I was like, and I started, the best thing I did is I worked a bunch of dead-end jobs between 18 and 22 before I started comedy. Then at 22, I had some stupid job at an irrigation company, started doing stand-up. Then I asked them, like, hey, you need anyone to work here? So they put me, like, up front taking reservations, which was great. So I just do that during the day, and then I got thrown on spots at night because someone didn't show up, someone's late, whatever. And then I just got to drink for free. So
There we go.
with comedy, I got all the stage time I wanted, and then I got all the booze I wanted. I got introduced to all that. And there was also where I started, like the Comedy Zone Charlotte at that time was in a strip mall, and right down the block there was a strip club, and we got sort of club courtesy. So I might as well have been in a metal band, like a hair metal band in the 80s. It was the best time of my life. I was like, this is incredible. Free booze, all the stage time. Poor man's rock star behavior.
Yeah, you don't even have to drive to the strip club from the comedy club.
Just the worst behavior. Yeah, it was just so much fun for those 2 years. And then I got on the road after that, like 2 or 3 years in.
Okay.
It just was so different than today. And
Do you have what would be? Do you have like a go-to like favorite road story?
Man, I don't know. There's a lot of messy road stories. I don't know. I don't think I have a go-to. It depends, like drinking day stuff. I just remember, the way you can do this in your 20s of like how many times I would stay out, and play. I'd be in like Jacksonville, Florida, and have like an 8-hour drive to the next gig, and I would just be out till 4 or 5 in the morning, or get back to the hotel at 8 in the morning, check out at 11, and drive 8 hours on no sleep, no food.
Oof.
And I just through my 20s just did that to airports and just got away with it over and over again.
I'm 27, and I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know how I did it either.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
I don't plan
do
on,
it.
Unless like people are really, if you join our patreon.com FUDad and start paying me some real cash, I could do some crazy shit. But I don't know about driving 8 hours on no sleep. Like
That's a very minor thing.
And then doing jokes after that, right?
Yeah. Because you just get there and drink again and go
And you
again.
weren't a drug guy. You were just
I dabbled.
just booze. Okay.
No, I never liked smoking weed that much. It put me to sleep or made me paranoid. So I would do coke whenever I could get it, but it was mostly booze.
Cocaine, I've done like a handful of times, and it's never been a thing where I had any fun during, after, talking, like looking back on the memories of all the I've never had done cocaine and been like made like a good, happy, fun decision.
I don't know if I made good decisions, but I caused less trouble on coke than I did on booze. Because you're like alert, or wherever I was.
You are more aware. I will give you
hyper
that.
aware, and
Yes.
so if I was in a hotel room or someone's house, I wasn't leaving or driving or yelling. I wasn't in a blackout. You're
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
paranoid, but you're not leaving.
Yeah,
and I never really got that crazy paranoid. I just ran my mouth for 6 hours.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And I was
It's a lot of
annoying.
talking.
And
Everyone's annoying, yeah.
Yeah, and the next day sucked because you've been up till 7 a.m.
Yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
Your sinuses are shot. But I never did anything to. The booze was the problem. So, like road stories. I mean, someone asked me this one recently. Like, the gigs I was doing when I cut my teeth on it, like featuring, were like really rough bar gigs down south. So
Okay.
really bad towns.
Oh, I know.
Like
Yeah.
Dothan and Valdosta, Georgia, and Clarksville, Tennessee, and Paducah, Kentucky. Awful towns. I hate them. And bars too, but I mean, and in Charleston, West Virginia, I remember one time I did it, and there was a Christmas party in the first 3 rows, and a regular crowd behind them. This company had ridden out, whatever, and so they were drunk. They'd been drinking since 6 p.m. They came in, and a guy in the front row center had his back to like the opener that night, just had his back right to him, never turned around, and the opener
So just facing the back of the room,
just facing away, front row center,
rattling.
And the comic just sort of performed, just autopilot over him, my buddy Jason. And I'm like, we were co-headline. He did 40 minutes without addressing this guy who's inches away from him, staring at the back of the room, drinking. They're talking during his set and shit. It's like, so then I go up and I just address it immediately. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he just spun a perfect 180 and landed like with his heels on the stage and his legs apart. I don't know what happened. I'm like, I started pointing at it, and he slapped the shit out of me. I mean, just slapped me, caught me flush.
God.
Like rang my bell,
Like across the face, like
just
full
across the ear.
Oh wow!
Like just really, like
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
And then I didn't know what to do. I'm like, if it's either a fight or curse him out. So I cursed him out, and he was like sort of stunned that I think we weren't fighting. So then the staff throws him out, but there's still 28 people in his party that now aren't going who hate me.
Yeah,
Got their buddy kicked out. So now they're worse heckling and stuff like this, and so then I'm fighting through them, and then 2 girls and a guy.
I respect you for staying on after getting slapped.
I stayed on.
If I get slapped, if you slap me at a show, that's the closer. See ya.
I was pretty drunk. I mean, I was like a minute in, too. And so, like, I
That
kept
was
going.
your opening joke. Getting fucking open-faced slapped by a grown man.
Yeah, and it hurt, man. It hurt real bad. And then so there was like a regular crowd behind them that were like good people, but this Christmas party was a nightmare. And so they kept heckling me, and I finally got into it with 2 girls and a guy in this Christmas party. One of them got up and like mooned me and all this other. They were like, it was just fucking lawless.
Mayhem,
and then I'm like, I don't care, get out. And so they started to walk out, and 2 girls and a guy, and I'm like cursing them all the way, and they had to go around this side to go out of the building, and I'm like cursing them all the way out of the room, and one of them had a drink, so when I turned back after I thought they were gone, the guy had grabbed the girl's drink, like a pina colada or a fruity drink, and threw it at me, and it shattered on my elbow, and glass went into the crowd. So now the regular crowd, some of their wives got hit by glass and stuff, so now they're coming to start a fight with these Christmas party.
Yeah.
And now it's bedlam. Now it's like, it already was, but now now I have to get off stage.
Yeah.
Then we got to call the
Crips,
cops.
Bloods. It's gang violence.
Yeah, it's a shitstorm. And so now I have to go stage and call the cops. The club manager's like, I'm like, call the cops, fuck them. Like, yeah, I want to press charges. And then
Yeah, fuck that.
the MC went back on stage. He was like a radio DJ, and he went on stage and was literally like dancing to try to. He didn't know what to do. He was panicked.
That's hilarious. Hey, everybody, well, let's get back to the comedy show here.
He's panicked. He goes for 2 minutes, then leaves the stage, and now there's just people milling about, and so they kicked the whole party out. And then the people behind them, the regular crowd, were sort of on my side. They saw it, so I'm like, if you guys move up, we'll do the show. So they moved up, and they were awesome. I did like 30 more minutes for them.
Is there just blood running down your elbow?
No,
Like,
I think I had a long sleeve shirt. No, but it hurt.
Yeah.
There was no blood, but it felt like someone just like right there on the tip of your elbow. Felt like it was bruised. And then so I did perform for them to 30 minutes. They were great. They stayed there. I got off stage to the cops holding those guys. And then like it was a Charleston Police Department. They're like, you want to press charges? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, I do. And they're like, well, we don't know where you live. You don't live here. You live in North Carolina, right? So if you press charges, you got to show up to court in a few months. And in my head and in the days of them, I'm like, if I don't show up, I press charges and don't show up, am I in trouble?
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how this, in the heat of the moment. So I'm like, just get them the fuck out of here. Get them out of it was a hotel gig.
Yeah.
And that was that. And so kicked them out. And that was the end of it. And then, so that was like a regular gig. And the girl that ran the gig said that, the club manager said that the next year, they asked to do the Christmas party at the hotel again. And the owners of the hotel were like, yeah, you can do it. And she had to go,
What?
no, you can't. They assaulted a comedian last year. Because the owners were just going to like, yeah, sure, pay us. You can come back and kill everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of shit. They were like rough gigs. I think I wrote stories. I was just doing these like roadhouse rooms.
Yeah.
That were terrible. I mean, some of it helps you get your chops, but some of it's like after a certain point.
After a certain point. I mean, we were talking earlier before this about clubs in North Carolina, and we were talking about the laughing gas.
Yeah.
This set was, I mean, it was a lot tamer than that story, but it was the worst set of my life. However, the most I've ever been paid for a comedy show. But
nice. Sweet.
it was like last second I got hit up and the host, who was a buddy of mine, was like, they need a feature. And I'm like a year and a half in. So I knew that I should say no, because I was like, there's no way I could feature right now. I have like maybe 6 minutes. But I was like, yeah, I can do. I think they needed me to do 15. It's like, yeah, let's do it. And we're there at the bar watching the crowd come in. And the crowd are old people would be nice. Yeah. These people are like elderly, like I'm like walkers with the tennis balls.
Perfect.
Like they're too old they can't do friction anymore. They need like the
slide it.
yeah.
It's not coming off the ground.
Exactly. And so I started getting a little nervous, and it's a pretty big crowd of like very elderly people at this point. And so then I kind of was talking to the owner about like, do you think I could do like 10 minutes? And he was like, you're the feature, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, no, at least 15, guy. Like we need time.
Yeah.
And so I get up there, and this is the worst heckle I've ever gotten. Like I've gotten like the like next or that kind of stuff. That's easy peasy. But I was in the middle of a joke, and this old lady, and she was trying to be sweet about it, just kind of went, no thank you.
Like, no thank to your entire act,
to all of it, to the whole thing, to the last 5 minutes. I mean, I was bombing very hard, like very quiet. And you can't say, because my instinct was like, don't heckle me or whatever. But I looked at her, and she was, clutching her purse. She had pearls on. It was the night out. You can't destroy. That's somebody's grandma.
No, you can't do that. No, thank you to your entire presentation.
Yeah.
Just please, no, thank you to all of it. Oh, that sucks.
Got $200 though for really
thank you.
Scarring my life for
the polite heckles.
Yeah. Those are the worst.
This is not a heckle, but one of the funniest and saddest things I've ever seen in stand-up comedy was there was a cattle call audition for some festival when I first started, like Aspen Comedy Festival way back in the day.
Yeah.
And there was this dude that had started doing open mics, and he was a Vietnam vet, and he was unhinged. And dude, he wore like military gear in. I mean, I don't know. And
like
so,
fatigues and stuff?
Yeah, I forgot his name, but he went up. So we all have to go do 2 minutes in front of each other, in front of 100 comedians trying to get spots on the night show or something. And like, I mean, no one's really doing well, but I mean, he went up and got nothing. And I mean, there are a lot of people getting nothing, but he's just like at the end of it in a very like, he's just like, I just like to apologize for wasting everybody's time, and walked off with his head down. I'm like, this is the best, the saddest. I never saw him again. I mean, I hope he lived through the day, but for wasting everyone's time, like that's the best closer I've ever heard. It's just 10 demon comics in the back laughing at him. Like, I just apologize for wasting
it's so crazy
everyone's time.
The juxtaposition of like, this is supposed to be comedy, like the most fun thing in the world, and it can turn into like the most sad, deep, dark place.
We come unraveling. It sucks.
It does.
To be on the side of it, I've felt that before. I've just never said it. That's
yeah.
What I mean?
That's why it's so funny. That's why all the comedians laugh, is because we feel that all the time, but you can't say it,
And it was so somber.
Earnest,
earnest,
genuine.
Yeah, eyes down off the stage, looking at his feet, like Jesus Christ.
Well, before we get out of here, we didn't even touch on it, Paul, because we got all lost.
Man, that was fast.
Do you have like a quick dad quip? I mean, I know you said you were raised by your mom.
Yes.
So he wasn't really in the picture.
No, my dad, quickly, the short version is like, he left. My parents split up when I was like 3, and then he had visitation until I was like 12 or 13. When I hit puberty, all that stuff went wrong.
Yeah.
I stopped wanting to see him too, so I didn't go and visit. So I didn't see him again until I was 30.
Oh wow.
Now I'm in my 40s. We're reconnecting.
Okay.
So it's this long, convoluted thing, but so I'm just now getting to know him. The only thing I know now is my dad. When we started to reconnect, he's like, "Do you have any jokes about me?" I'm like, "I got this one thing where I'm like, my father left when I was 3, and he's like, it was 4. I don't know what your mother told you." I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I like how you wants credit for that extra year.
Yeah, that one.
You don't understand that 3 to 4, man. That was my last straw. That was tough.
That's a perfect example of him. So it's like, dude, I don't know.
How do you try to reconnect? Do you watch like football or?
No, he's come to some shows.
Oh, okay.
And he laughs at some stuff, but there's so much time missing.
Yeah,
so there was like all these crazy stories and stuff, heavy stuff we probably should sort out. And now it's very surface. So we're like nice and cordial, but it's like, I don't know this guy. And so you're trying to like, is this good or bad?
You're a sober guy.
Yeah.
Now. So, I mean, I can't imagine having to talk to my dad now without drinking. Like, that's how we talk about anything.
Yeah.
In my family is like everyone has to have like 2-3 glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And then we could start to talk to each other. But I can't imagine, especially after all that time apart, that's got to be really tough.
I mean, if I was still drinking, it would be a fist fight if my dad and I drank together.
Maybe that's what needs to happen.
It may be. But then I'm always like, what if I get my ass beat by my elderly dad? You know what I mean? He's bigger than me still to this day. So it's like, I think about it. I'm like, I don't know. It's probably better that I'm sober. I'm like, we haven't sorted out any of our issues, but we're sort of around each other now. Huh. So I don't even know what it is. Yeah. That's my father, biological father, but we haven't really been digging deep on it. So I don't know. Huh. I don't know much about him,
Wow. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on.
Is that a weird one to end on?
It was a little bit, but I think, show's called Fuck You, Dad. We got there.
That's right. Fuck you, Dad.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
Just like road dates. If you go to my website, paulhoopercomedy.com, and then I have road stuff. I'm going to post more for next year. That's basically it. I'm trying to get a new album out next year. And
awesome.
Yeah. I've got one actually recorded in 2014 that I never released.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know. And then I'm like, I think I'm going to release that and maybe a new one too.
That would be cool. A double drop. Double discs.
Yeah, and put it out there and just then rack my brain trying to find a title again.
Yeah,
that people forget all the time. I got to get it.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, Paul. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it. Hey, guys, you just listened to another episode of Fuck You, Dad. If you could follow us on our Instagram, which is FCKYOUDAD podcast. That's the important one. We also have a Twitter account, which is FCKYOUDADPODCA1. If you could follow that. Also, please submit any father stories that you have that you'd like us to make fun of, laugh at, or share. Shoot that to our Instagram DMs. And if you could please go ahead and rate the podcast, share the podcast with your friends and family that might enjoy it. And keep listening. Thank you so much.